I got to turn this down, Bob.
Shall we begin?
Thank you, Minneapolis. Football Feast. 9 to noon. You like that?
This is an old-fashioned ass kicking right here.
And that's a fact.
Good stuff.
I mean, pick your poison with that defense. You homer!
Here they come. This is 9 to noon, and a Friday football feast becomes a Friday power forward feast. It's PA and Charch.
Thinking of those days gone by now.
Good stuff.
Music in the air.
We aim to please on a Friday feast. Good morning. Paul Charchian is the co-host, and I'm Paul Allen. Nordo produces, and in studio, in carryover like fashion, Ernie Banks like fashion, playing 2 for FM 100.3 KFAN, is the Bally's television voice for the Minnesota Timberwolves, Michael Grady. How did it go?
Well, you might want to start by letting Michael know where the on button for the mic is, because we just heard you play initials, and I think there might be a little bit of confusion about how the microphone works.
Right. Was there controversy? You'll never find.
I was a sacrificial lamb. I knew I had no shot. This early in the morning, my brain is not functioning in the right way.
Right.
It really doesn't start to function until around 6, 7 p.m. So no, that was a lot of fun. That was a lot of fun.
It is, and you know what? It's sneaky hard.
It is. No, it is sneaky hard. It is. It's. I listened to a couple of games before, and I said, okay, yeah, no, this is going to be brutal.
It's going to be. It is.
This is going to be brutal.
You did some all 22 audio via podcast. Wow, first time I've ever heard that. That's great.
Breaking down the initials game.
Like how many clues does it take on average?
Yep.
What's the batting average of guesses in play? The analytics of it all. The PER, bringing the PER and PER into initials.
It's tempting, Michael, to feel like it's a litmus test for your intelligence.
Yeah,
but it's not. It doesn't mean, at least I hope not, because I've only ever won one time. It is legitimately tough and way harder to play in person than when you're driving down the road and you're listening to it and it's easy. Yeah, that's right. When the mic is on and the lights are bright, the initials game is tough. It is tough.
Great game, fun game.
No, it was fun. It was fun.
And it's great having you here for many reasons. But when I asked you to join us yesterday, the first and foremost, I was thinking and realizing that you were in New Jersey when Kyrie Irving was there.
Brooklyn,
yeah. Excuse me, in Brooklyn, right? But Irving, with his Nets debut, I had forgotten this until I looked it up. His Nets debut, man, he went for 50 points in a loss to the Timberwolves in 2019. So Kyrie Irving with the Brooklyn Nets, it probably was the worst time of his career. He gets Rookie of the Year with the Cavs. He wins a championship with the Cavs. The Brooklyn days were strange. And what we saw the other night was otherworldly. And good morning. Just Kyrie Irving, man. What was it like to be around him and watch him up close and stuff?
He was good to me. I had a really good relationship with Kyrie Irving. COVID-19 just completely derailed that squad and what they were building with his refusal to get vaccinated and that whole thing. But watching him on a day in and day out basis in practice or in games, and to see his wizardry out there on the basketball court, he is truly one of the special players in this game, and unique that at 6'2", he rarely gets his shot blocked.
And not only is he so skilled, and he's always been like that with the Rookie of the Year and eventual champ with the Cavs, but you've seen him play in Dallas with Luka now for a while, and it's abundantly clear. Correct me if I'm wrong, man. You're closer to it than me. but he and Luka are agenda free. And it doesn't, like when you were in Brooklyn, man, it was KD, it was Durant, James Harden, Kyrie Irving. To get to get groups like that together and get them to be agenda free, like Luka and Kyrie last year and part of this year, from what I read here from those I respect, they weren't necessarily agenda free. They are now, right?
Yeah, well, I mean, in Brooklyn, it was agenda free. He had a great relationship with Kevin Durant. Again, it was just stuff out off the court that completely derailed that squad. He played well with LeBron James, just in his own mind felt like I'm not going to get the credit that I deserve if I'm continuing to be in the shadow of LeBron James. And in hindsight, he realized that was faulty logic.
Right.
So
yeah, we suffered through that with Stephon Marbury here 20 years ago.
No question.
And I think Marbury ultimately regretted that too.
Yes, and so he's a little more wise now. And then also, when you're playing with the guy who put up 73 points in an NBA game, like it's pretty, it's like, you know what? I don't really have to do heavy lifting here. This guy is special also. So he is very comfortable trading off in the moment with Luka Doncic, and it's quite the 1-2 combo.
Right.
God, it really is. It's it's a very tough matchup. They were both very successful in game one. What did you feel like was the story of the game in game one?
Being there in Denver and watching the intensity and the effort and the execution from the Timberwolves when they were down 20 early in that third quarter and battling all the way back and watching the energy for Denver dissipate while the energy for the Timberwolves rose. And everything about that experience at Ball Arena is about forcing 5,280 feet above sea level in your face and how this is going to mess with your head and you're going to get tired. But it was the Timberwolves that got stronger and it was the Nuggets that got weaker and more tired. And so going from that game into our game one, I'm thinking, okay, we're, better condition, energy, intensity, all that's going to be there. We understand the moment. But to see Ant is tired as I've seen him in a very long time, and to see the Wolves having an inability to sustain momentum. I understand this is the Western Conference Finals and Dallas is great, but I've just seen the Wolves overwhelm an opponent with long stretches, and it was just little spurts. And Dallas just kind of hung around. I just felt like that was a big difference. I think if the energy is different, the execution is different. We see more efficient games from Ant and Cat. And if you couple that with role players also having a strong game, Jaden's been playing well. Kyle came off the bench, played well. Hopefully Nikhil can knock down a few more shots. Naz Reid. It's just going to make a completely different ball game.
Let's reverse 5 days for a second, because when the Timberwolves bounced the champs, we're watching the celebration on the court and everything, and here I see you run right on to start to execute your toil or congratulate people or whatever. What was that like? What was it like being right next to that Game 7 victory?
It was surreal because I've said this before. Everybody on this Timberwolves squad, whether we're talking about a player, someone on the coaching staff, someone on the training staff, whatever it may be, they have a story. And everybody individually wants this for a different reason. Yeah. And it is a daunting task to take down the defending champs. And it is a daunting task to go into a defending champ's house in a Game 7 and pull out a victory. Add to the fact that you were down 20, it was just... And then to battle all the way back and to rip their heart out of their chest and to have that celebration, have that moment with so many Timberwolves fans in the building there in Denver is a moment that I personally will never forget. And I don't know that anything will really top that outside of a championship for me personally. And sometimes it's a moment before a championship that you remember for a long time. When I was in Indiana, the Colts beat the Patriots coming back from a deficit in the AFC Championship game. That was just as powerful, if not more powerful to me than beating the Bears in the Super Bowl a couple of weeks later. Oh, wow. So this was a really special moment for so many different people, and to see the joy on so many different people's faces was, again, something that the job's not done, but that was a special moment.
So did you parlay that AFC title win to Miami? and then a rainy Sunday night. And Prince Rogers Nelson,
Prince,
God,
yes.
God rest his soul,
Yes.
with the greatest halftime show ever. Did you go?
I did not go. I was in studio, in the radio studio, pushing buttons, and I was the board operator locally
All right.
for the Super Bowl. So I was watching it on the screen and then making sure that the commercials played on radio for the Super Bowl.
Yeah.
With Bob Lamey on the call.
That
Right.
Denver Game 7 on TV, it sounded like every time the Nuggets scored, it sounded like a Nuggets home game. When the Wolves scored, it sounded like a Wolves home game. It was crazy.
Yes.
It was.
You rarely get kind of a college basketball Final Four type of experience.
That's
like
a great.
NBA
That's a great
game.
analogy.
You know, where you're hearing both both fan bases get into it. And there were stretches where the Nuggets went on a roll when they went up 20, where they were completely drowning out the Wolves fans. But once Minnesota went on that run and the Wolves fans started to get into it, I've referenced it multiple times now. There was a Timberwolves fan to my left who had a Nas Reed towel who was getting cooked when the Nuggets were up 20.
I bet.
But as the Timberwolves mounted their comeback, I mean, this towel was, I mean, he was going bananas. And so shout out to that guy. But everybody who, the entire fan base, it was special for so many different people. But yeah, I'll never forget that feeling being in the building and seeing that comeback and seeing them just completely take the heart out of the defending champions. It was really special. So you can imagine coming off that high, and then now you have to reset in a series against a team that has a completely different style.
It's real.
With two dynamite players in the backcourt. There's an adjustment period, and game one kind of felt like round one of a prize fight where you're kind of feeling out your opponent before you find your rhythm.
Michael, you mentioned fatigue that set in clearly in game one. My worry is it's game one. We're already fatigued, and there's no extended breaks in this cadence. It's every other day for the rest of the series. So I'm concerned. What is your level of concern?
I just because of the competitive nature of this team, given what we've seen all season long, I'm not concerned. And these are guys, especially with their back against the wall, perform at a very high level. That said, you still can't take Dallas for granted. Luka is still going to be Luka. Kyrie is still going to be Kyrie. But in the same way that we talk about it maybe affecting the Timberwolves, it's going to affect, the Dallas Mavericks as well. Luka Doncic not getting extra days rest on that knee and that ankle and having to play every other day is going to impact him as this series continues to go along. So both teams have to deal with it. Neither team is going to make any excuses, but I just think the competitive nature of the Timberwolves is going to shine through in this game. They have so many different advantages that they didn't really exploit in that game one, that they had a very long film session yesterday. They kind of opened their eyes to things that they need to lock in on, and I believe that they'll do that tonight.
And some of the comments specifically from head coach Finch after the game, I thought were really interesting because the game was just watching it, listening to it, or stylistically, it was so different from things we've seen this postseason. What? We're shooting 49 threes? What? They're missing, like we've made 12 more threes and we're going to lose? And defensively, the on-ball perimeter switching and everything and handling the picks, it was like, I'd say 75% of that Denver game, except for the 25% when Denver started missing in the third quarter, early fourth, and like a tidal wave, that whole thing switched, but the defense had a lot to do with it. So, we replayed Finch's press conference yesterday, and he immediately got into the end of game offense and unorganized and just A, B, and C, and he just went. And I was like, yeah, but I mean, it's the defense for me, specifically in the first half, did not look like, what we are used to seeing in super big situations. And while recognizing off that Nugget series and human nature getting to win too, I understand that and I respect it, and actually for sure agree that it played into the loss. But the 49 threes, I just couldn't believe what I was seeing.
Yeah.
Like the 49 threes, what do you think?
Part of it is taking what the defense has given you, and a lot of them, they were good looks. But when fatigue sets in, you're going to see a lot of settling.
A lot of jumpers.
A lot of settling.
Great point.
And we saw that as the game continued on. It takes, you're exerting energy by attacking the defense and getting downhill and getting to the rim. And to fire away a three sometimes is just taking the easier way out. So, so I expect to see a different attack. They're not going to turn down good looks. They're not going to turn down good looks. But I do believe there will be more of a concerted effort to use their size and strength advantage that they do have over Dallas. And I want to give Dallas credit.
Yeah.
Since they made the trade and brought in P.J. Washington and Daniel Gafford, they're a completely different defensive squad.
Right.
And so you can't take them lightly defensively. Luka was even getting after it in game one defensively. He made a big play to break up a lob pass to Rudy Gobert. He was defending well on the perimeter at times. Kyrie Irving has long been a vastly underrated defender in this league, so you can't take them lightly. That said, the Wolves still have a size and strength advantage and should be able to get more looks at the rim than what they got in game one.
Lou Rawls joining us to analyze game 2 of the Western Conference Finals. Music and sports will be handled at about 9:35. Charch?
Michael Grady, TV Box Wolves.
You'll never find.
Talking about those threes, Towns, Connolly, and Nikhil took almost half of the 49 threes. They combined for 3 makes.
It's not going to work.
That's not going to work.
It's not going to work. And we've counted it on, and we've seen Conley, and we're not worried. Knock down big threes throughout the regular season, throughout the postseason.
Yeah.
Conley's going to be fine. Would love to see Nikhil get cooking again.
That's the one, right?
Yes. I believe he might be 1 for 13 in the last 2 ball games. And so you'd really like to see Nikhil get it going. He exerts so much energy and effort on the defensive side of the ball. And it's one of the reasons that, you have to play him. And I love watching him hoop because he has amnesia. So many guys let missed shots affect how they battle on the other end of the floor, and that's not the case with Nikhil. So I really would love to see that get rewarded and see him knock down shots again and find a rhythm because he just gives everybody juice.
I'll give you a little Nikhil data for you. He was a 44% shooter in the regular season. And he was fine against the Suns, but from the Denver series forward, 33%, just 29% on his threes, 6.5 points per game. 0 steals in the 8 games since the Denver series started. And he's a better defender than that.
He is.
Nikhil's a better defender than that. Here's another one for Nikhil. 1 offensive rebound in those 8 games. That's it for Nikhil. It's a lot of struggles.
It is. And again, I just want to see the shots. I really just want to see the shots
Get
go
those
down
threes.
because he's doing a lot of things to be a nuisance out there defensively, even if the steals aren't showing up. He does a lot of things to be a nuisance and showing hands and harassing ball handlers. But that shot needs to go down. He needs to find that rhythm again. And there's an ebb and flow. And right now, he's in a valley right now, and we want to see that go up. It just creates a big boost for the team when he's coming off the bench and hitting shots.
One last thing on Nikhil. At the end of this last game, when Ant is clearly fatigued, I was starting to ask myself, as hard as it is to take Anthony Edwards off the floor at the end of a game, do we need to bring in Nikhil just to give Ant 60 seconds of breather? And then I was like, but Nikhil's ice cold too, pick your poison.
Sounds like Luka Garza time.
In the Western Conference Finals, Anthony Edwards is going to have to ask to be pulled out of the game.
I know,
like
right?
He's going to say,
drag
he's
him
going
off,
to, it's
get
one
security.
of those. But you have to find ways to get him rest within the flow of the game. Also, you definitely have to sit him down at times, but even on the floor, again, Luka is not going to guard, Anthony. He's not going to exert energy guarding Anthony Edwards.
Yeah.
They're going to find the easiest matchup for, finger quote, easiest matchup, or a guy that Luka can rest on so that he can have his energy on the other end of the floor. And as dynamic a defender as Anthony Edwards is, you may have to pick your spots on when you want him to guard either a Kyrie or a Luka Doncic so he has energy, because you really are going to need his scoring punch.
Any reason to believe Jaden McDaniel's scoring regresses badly anytime soon? I mean, I'm talking like a 2 for 9 down at 7 points or something.
Yeah, we've seen that during the regular season. He'll have a hot game, and then he'll have a couple games where maybe 5 points, 8 points, whatever it may be. He is shooting so confidently right now that I just want to continue to knock on wood and just hope that it continues. Because from a Dallas perspective, they're waiting for him to, go back to, regress to the mean.
Right.
So from the Timberwolves perspective, you hope he keeps it up. Because if Ant has an Ant game, Cat has a Cat game, and Jaden continues his hot shooting, what can Dallas really do?
Right.
So I hate that a strong Jaden game was wasted.
Right.
But
Yeah.
if he continues to shoot well and gets back on track with his efficiency, and same thing with Karl Anthony Towns, that's a big problem for the Mavs.
But it's been 3 consecutive for Jaden. They're 2-1 in those games, where he's scoring over 20 and he's hitting threes at a high percentage.
Yep.
And the confidence part, like you said, I mean, it's just so apparent, even from afar, where he's more confident pump faking in the key and taking a little dribble, little passes, and it's just all coming together because of his 3-point shooting.
Yes, right? Yes. And so, again, fingers crossed, whatever superstition you want to use, you just want it to continue because he can knock down a couple of those a game. It's just huge. And I go back to that game 6 where there was all the pressure was on Minnesota to try to force a game 7 against the Nuggets. And you're down 9-2 early, and everybody in the crowd is going, uh-oh. And Jaden had already missed a 3 in an earlier sequence, and then he gets a corner look at a 3, knocks it down, go on the other end. Edwards gets a steal, bucket, and then they just steamrolled from there. And so McDaniels is going to get good looks, and he's got to be able to knock him down, and thankfully he's been doing it the last 3 ball games.
All right, a couple more for the Vox chart.
And the corner's his spot. I mean, Jaden loves that corner spot. I'm surprised that opposing defenses haven't done more to take that corner away because he still gets open looks from that corner, and he makes that shot.
Yeah, it's pick your poison with the defense because Edwards is so good at slashing and cutting to the rim and is going to draw attention. You really can't leave Towns, and so it's kind of pick your poison. You're going to have to leave someone open. You can't leave Conley open, and then Gobert's the one setting screens and rim rolling. So McDaniels is the one that they're daring to shoot, and he talks about it a lot. Opposing teams are kind of disrespectful. And if they're going to be disrespectful, then you have to make them pay. Yeah. And he's been making them pay lately. And as that improves with Jaden McDaniels, this offense is going to be so dynamic.
So the expectation this evening, at least for me, is that the on-ball perimeter defense is tighter. It's just tighter than it was game 1, where with the drop coverage is such an en vogue term right now. And it's actually a defensive scheme that's easy to define if you watch it because you can see the pick. You can see one guy go one place, one guy go the other. And the Wolves are so effective with it, when in mixing up coverages, so to speak. But there was just so much confusion in game 1 where the guy heading to the basket was left free and there was nobody there. Or my man Luka or whomever, he was. So there was confusion and indecisiveness, which is antithetical to the way this team plays defense. So I'm absolutely expecting a lot of that to be tightened this evening. Yeah. What about Anthony getting off tonight? What about Anthony having a big immortality type game? And that with a button-down defense ties the series at 1.
He's got to get downhill. He's got to get downhill, draw fouls.
Somebody just got excited. Right. Wiggling and squirming and everything. Hey! Somebody got excited.
Has to be his normal aggressive self, and he has to answer the call. He made the statement about wanting to guard, or my assignment will be guarding Kyrie Irving after Game 7.
That big piece of trash talking, that everybody ran with for 2 days. That's completely stupid and ridiculous.
Any sort of fodder that people can grab their hands on, people are going to jump on it. Right. And Kyrie said he used it as motivation. Yeah. And so Ant, being the competitor that he is, will have to follow up. And I expect nothing less. He's just one of those rare athletes that supremely talented and has a chip on his shoulder to go out there and prove that he's the best player on the basketball court. So I expect to see that tonight.
Rudy Gobert, one thing that I think he's struggled on from the Denver series forward, he's had either just 1 or 2 offensive rebounds in 7 of those 8 games from the Denver series forward. And as impactful as he has been in large stretches, I think for Rudy, the bar's a little higher on offensive rebounding, and I think that's a spot where we could use more than 1 or 2 per game.
Yeah, and another thing that he does really well that you'd like to see tonight is because you will not get credit for the tap out. If there's a miss and then you smack the ball out to the perimeter, you don't get credit for that as far as an offensive rebound. But those are just little things that type of activity to just get another possession, fresh 14, get another look at the rim. These are all the little things that you would like to see. I think to a man, everybody would say that wasn't my best performance. Outside of a Jaden McDaniels, who even toward the end of the game had some plays that he would like to have back. I think a lot of guys would say I was a step slow here, step slow there. I can tighten this up. I can tighten that up. And if everybody looks in the mirror and cleans that up, they're going to be just fine, including Rudy Gobert.
2 words, Michael Grady.
Fox.
Thank you for helping. I appreciate it. And
Appreciate you.
Enjoy the game
Appreciate
tonight.
you. It should be fun tonight.
Michael Grady, TV Vox for the Minnesota Timberwolves. PA and Charch are feasting on a Friday. Nordo produces. And Kevin Lynch from Valley Sports North joins us in studio at 11 o'clock. But right now, on a rather gloomy and blustery Friday, we have the cash thing.
The Fan, along with BigDeck.com, want to give you a chance to put $1,000 in your hand with the National Cash Contest. Use the keyword WIN at KFAN.com, and you might win $1,000 simply by using the keyword WIN at KFAN.com.
Life was good then it.
What's going on over there, the Con? You excited for the game this evening, the Con?
Are you kidding me, man? It was cool listening to Grady, not only with the power trip, the initials game went south in a hurry, but hearing that sweet voice, ready for game 2. As bad as the team played, still a bucket difference.
Yeah.
3-3 at home. Pay off the home fans tonight.
Yeah.
Bright lights, big city. I can't wait for this thing.
The point spread opened the Timberwolves favored by 4.5 this evening, and it soared within the course of a day and change to 5.5.
5.5 right now.
Yeah, money line went from like minus 190 to like minus 215. So whether that's the chasing squares or those of the lampshade wearing variety who have a lot of cash trying to get their money back, or the whales and the sharps and those who claim to know what they're looking for, the predominant amount of larger wagers, I would imagine, are coming in on the Timberwolves. Do you think that's a blind? Well, this is going to be a long series. Games are going to be close. I mean, because if the Timberwolves lose this evening and jack around like they did against the Nuggets, it's the elasticity thing. It's like you can, it's things have elasticity and stretchability, but only so far before that sucker breaks. And good morning.
Good morning. Yeah, at one point I was using kind of that front running idea when we were talking about last series in particular, because start early, start hot, and you're running away with these games. Struggle early, start cold, and it's an uphill battle. But I think in just that series, speaking to the ebbs and flows of it, as unpredictable as it was, they did front run in with those 2 wins on the road. They got punched in the mouth multiple times on the ropes
By the champs.
Found their way to battle back.
Yeah.
So you can't put it in the context of a 7-game series that this is an absolute must win, but in some senses, it feels like if fatigue was an issue, if those talkers that we really rattled through and then continued on, and Grady was fantastic with them in terms of why game 1 went the way it did, all those triples, settling for the jumpers, what was happening on the interior, Kyrie just unstoppable, heat-seeking missile to the hoop, all of those things. If that is because of fatigue, and I got some audio later on when there's more time, I want to hit you with some Finch bits. I mean, you'd think, Finch absolutely had to have gone nuclear on these kids yesterday with the way he was talking about. You couldn't have played worse, according to the game plan, effectively is what Finch was saying yesterday after film session. So if that is the case, then just riding the waves and watching this team through the postseason, there has to be a number of people out there with duffel bags full of cash that are simply saying, I'm just betting against them being that awful again.
2 games in a row.
And so if that's why the point spread, and a lot of these guys, these pros out there, these sharps, as you would say, I don't think they ride emotional waves like that on a regular basis. But in the same sense, with the trend,
yeah,
I think you'd be you'd have to be really stubborn to not feel an idea of a bounce back for the Howl.
What we're discussing is for game 2. All right, so we know how the Wolves lost 108-105. We know, I mean, we from a minutia standpoint and following it closely and talking it out either professionally or personally, there's so much to that game 1. Final score 108-105. Dallas missed 1,000,000 threes. Mm-hmm. We took 1,000,000 threes. We've now had all the right people say, when you get tired, and the Wolves got tired, you will settle for jump shots, and that's very, very true. Defensively, as we just discussed with Grady, tightening things, getting things squared away and buttoned down. It's the point spread opened for game 2 with the Wolves favored by 4.5. And within a day, it went up to 5.5. And the money line went from -190 to -215.
Dang.
So that's, generally speaking, when it's that early in the equation with a day between, those are the sharps, the whales who are taking the bet, kind of what Nordo said. Okay, well, what's the bet? Well, the bet is their on-ball defense will be that of tenacity because it has 88.2% of the time on all these possessions and was not in game 1. The bet is Edwards and others won't settle for jump shots and instead will get to the basket and hopefully get to the line. So there are some scenarios you have to accept when you're giving 5.5 points to a team that compensates Luka Doncic and Kyrie Irving. Because that's just let me ask both of you guys this question, because I was thinking about it yesterday. You first, Nordo. Who do you think overall is a better team and why? The Dallas Mavericks or the Denver Nuggets?
Ooh.
It's tough. It's Dallas because of Luka and Kyrie.
And better defense.
I'm going to say...
defense ain't bad, man.
I'm going to say it's Dallas, but I would actually say a full-strength Jamal Murray. Mm-hmm. I actually think that is a complete difference with the way that they play.
Yeah.
And all of that included.
Yeah.
And Michael Porter, who helped carry the team through the Lakers series and completely fell off.
Yeah.
I believe it's the defending champs.
Yeah.
And so now when Jamal Murray's not healthy, then you say, well, you guys should have tried harder to keep Bruce Brown. Uncle Jeff Green.
Yeah.
Those things started to come into play because I think role-playing wise, Dallas is actually stronger. Specifically post-trade deadline.
Big time.
Full health.
That's what gets it over the hump for me, what you just said.
Yeah, and maybe
is the way Gafford and Lively can do inside what Jokic occasionally does.
It's a tougher question.
And DeAndre Jordan 8 years ago could do what we're talking about now, but he was relegated to ML Carr like cheerleader status during that series.
Yeah, they just have no rim protection. Jokic isn't going to be that guy. They can't affect inside.
And Doncic is kind of Jokic with handles and a 3-point game. I mean, they play.
Do you mean love handles?
They play dribbling. They play this. They play alike.
Yeah, they're for both of them at their best. Yep. And Luka hits all the threes obviously as well, but they get into that paint area. And then I'm passing it here, I'm floating it there, I'm turning around, creating fouls. There are some similarities to the way they operate. But Gafford and Lively, specifically as it pertains to this matchup, it might actually be a little bit tougher matchup for the Wolves than the Nuggets were last series.
What do you think?
Why isn't anybody talking about the depth of their bench?
Who's?
Dallas.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, if when
I didn't like it,
it's not great.
Yeah, I think
but they can get real minutes out of Green, and Hardaway, and
Hardy. Oh yeah, and Hardy.
That's
the league freak scraps that we never pick up.
Well, they don't have Dorian Finney-Smith anymore,
right? And Kleba, he's out. And Dwight Powell, I mean, he might have been on both our teams like 8 times, but he's not playing.
Well, the ACL changed everything in LFL.
But for what they want to do, it's Green, Hardy, Hardaway Jr., who's awful, and he was awful in game 1. Then Lively will have the game, and then Gafford will be okay. Then Gafford will have a big game, and Lively's in foul trouble, and he's okay. But their bench is better than I thought. Into the series.
And that's a lot of how the Timberwolves beat Denver is we ground down their starters to the point that when they needed energy at the end of Game 7, they were tapped out by the middle of the third quarter. And
like us in Game 1.
Like us in Game 1.
Yeah.
That's right. But, over the course of the series, we ground them down because they couldn't go to their bench enough. I feel like Dallas can.
Yeah, and the only way we're going to get to their bench more often is if we create more foul opportunities and we're putting more pressure on them. I mean, there just was none of that in Game 1. And, I guess, I don't know. I think we're splitting hairs here a little bit. I mean, Hardaway, if he rolls off the bench and hits 6 triples, then that night we're like, wow, that was awful. And there you go from the bench. But then the other times, like Reggie Jackson, Christian Brown had good moments last series, and defensively he's an absolute stud. So I think in the end, ultimately, it still comes back to forget about the benches. How do we handle, and we didn't handle it well, the Gafford-Lively bit in Game 1, and how that has to look so much different tonight.
What what did you do on Wednesday with the music v sports, sports v music? I had seen it on Twitter that you were just having a high level of angst and consternation and tumult within your personal covenant, and in that you didn't exactly know what to do. Go to a concert.
Consternation is perfect.
Go to a concert or watch a basketball game.
Which is hard.
How'd you handle it?
Well, I've had this you know how important music is to me and you. I've had this concert along with like 4 others over the course of the summer, circled for months.
Yeah.
LCD Sound System's one of my favorite bands, and I had seen them live before, and I knew their live show was great. They were playing the Armory downtown.
Right.
So what do you do?
What do you do?
I've been waiting 20 years to see the Timberwolves go to a Western Conference Finals.
Yeah.
LCD Sound System's in town now.
Yeah.
They come to town about once every 4 years.
Ooh.
So, okay. Wolves will play up to 7 games.
Yeah.
Now we know at least 5. Well, no, actually, we don't know that. We assume at least 5.
He went to the music.
Yeah.
So, what do I do? All right.
Have you seen LCDs? Have you seen them live before?
2 times.
Okay.
Now,
Coming.
I decided to try to have my cake and eat it too.
Wow.
Here's what I did.
Yeah.
Doors opened at the Armory, 7 o'clock. Right? Timberwolves tip off, 7:05. So I get in to the Armory shortly after their opening. I get a nice spot up front in the Armory. You don't want if you know the Armory, it's very thin and rectangular. You don't want to be at the back end of the Armory because you're a city block away at that point.
You want to be near the mosh pit.
Yes.
I always love that.
And this is kind of a dance band, so there was some moshing happening.
Oh, I saw the video of you getting bounced around. And you were crowd surfing. You jumped off the stage.
Shirtless.
It was unbelievable.
Yeah, a lot of that. And so I get up there early. No opener, which I love. I wish more bands had no opener.
Just get straight to it.
They did. They had a DJ that played.
Well, when you have a show where the combined amount of money the acts are getting is $32,000, I don't think you have room for an opener.
No, that is typical of my bands. But the Armory is, there's probably 4,000 that get in the Armory. Anyway, I watched the whole first half on my phone.
Oh.
And that was perfect. And I was not alone. This is like a third of the crowd is watching from LCD Sound System, watching the Wolves first half on our phone.
Wow.
And then as they go to half, LCD Sound System comes on stage. So now my next problem is, do I split my attention and try to watch the Wolves game on my phone while I'm at the concert, or do I just fully go concert?
What'd you do?
I decided to turn off my phone. Power off my phone, go dark on the Wolves game.
Right.
Try to get home without knowing the score.
So you didn't think about the Wolves game and what was happening?
Well,
and there had to be others watching it or following it. And say we take a 10-point lead earlier. Now we're getting beaten. We come back and they're back. You didn't endure any of that.
LCD Sound System comes on stage. Lead singer guy comes up to the mic and goes, "Thank God you showed up. We weren't sure anybody was going to be here because the Timberwolves game." And then here I am trying to just go I'm just trying to do blackouts. They gave score updates.
They did?
I always love that.
They gave score updates during the concert.
In songs while singing?
Between songs.
Oh, wait, you see bands where you don't like lyrics. So, how did they convey it?
Between songs, lead singer guy would come out and he'd go, Timberwolves 86.
Wow.
Mavericks 82. And the last update we got was Timberwolves 102, Mavericks like 98 or something.
And that's it?
And that was the last update we got.
Wow.
And but I don't have any frame of reference, like how much time was left in the game, where are we? And so then the whole last like third of the concert, no updates. And I'm like, that's not good.
Right.
That's not good. They would
not
tell
good.
us if they won.
Yes, they would.
That's not a good sign. And then at some point they then they had the break for the encore. By the way, encores suck. And people pulled out their phones and started looking, and I saw somebody's phone, and I saw the final score.
What's it called? LCD Live?
LCD sound system.
LCD sound
And
system.
they have words. I think
They
have
do.
lyrics,
All words. Although they will do long stretches of instrumental stuff, which I love. It was a 10 out of 10 show. This was one of the 10. I've seen hundreds of shows.
Hundreds?
One of the 10 best concerts I've ever seen.
Yeah.
Went down on Wednesday night, and I was delighted that I turned the phone off and I just took in the moment.
It and it's interesting to note that the crowd knew the Wolves finally lost 108-105. Lead singer guy did not have to give the final score. He just gave a howl.
I always love that one.
And played taps. By Finchy faith, we advance on a Friday. Finchy's front court feast.
Rough film session. I told the guys it's been a long time since I've been this disappointed in your effort, your performance, your attitude, your application, your attention to detail. Just wasn't there. Western Conference Finals started. I'm not sure if they got the memo. They got it this afternoon. So,
All right.
I said they were, we're 3-3 at home, and we have two kind of similar performances after coming off stints of success. There's a lot of ways, immaturity kind of rears its head, and this might be one of them. And but they got our attention now, so there's no reason for us to be, feeling ourselves. So,
all right, now. FIVA, FIHA, Fairness and Host of 9 to Noon Act. I'm the idiot. I read a Finch quote from yesterday on social media. I did not listen to the press conference, which I generally do. Mad producer dropped something earlier in the show. I didn't completely understand what he was saying, and because of it, I didn't push on it or anything. But he's like, Finch must have metaphorically undressed them yesterday, or read them the proverbial riot act. And I didn't know what he was talking about until I just heard that clip. And then the Western Conference Finals have started. Did you guys get the memo? And then the next one is like, we played immaturely, and that's he will go to that frequently, and it works with this team. But that's what you meant, right?
Yeah. Well, it's
wow.
So when after you have the exhilaration of winning Game 7, Ant and Kat at the podium, and Ant's talking about, I love Finch. This is why we're succeeding, is because Finch doesn't, he doesn't candy coat anything. He's going to absolutely hit us hard when he needs it. When I'm bleeping up, he'll hit me. When Kat's bleeping up, he'll hit me. And you hear it there, and it's like, okay, well, you sound like you love it after you just housed Game 7. How much did you love it and learn from it after Game 1? And there's some nausea audio. I don't have it in front of me, but I heard like these guys kind of sounded like they just got out of a funeral a little bit yesterday. So it was absolutely a tough. I think it was just film and then a get what you need type of day is how I saw it framed up on Twitter in terms of what their process or schedule was. But getting what they need may have been an absolute sledgehammer verbally from the head coach after that L.
So Anthony Edwards off the dribble, getting to the basket, channeling his inner Bubba Chuck, his inner Boney Iverson, his inner Allen Iverson, and taking the hit, making the basket, getting to the line. I think that's something on which we can count tonight. But like Jaden McDaniels, yes, I don't really see any reason because of the matchups he's getting in these games that his scoring and shooting, unless he completely goes pear-shaped and like gets nervous and stuff like that.
Which does happen sometimes.
Right, but it's 3 now. It's three in a row. 3 consecutive.
Yep.
It's 3 in a row for Fincho. 3 in a row for Fincho. But so I don't, that may come back a little, but I don't sense just a terrific regression. Nickeil Alexander-Walker, and I started thinking about this, man, when you were talking to Grady. And, Nickeil, when he claps his hands in front of Jamal Murray, and Jamal, might be playing on a wounded calf, and, he's smiling at him because Jamal can't get around him. These guys ain't that. So Luka and Kyrie, they're not that. So his defense is amongst the best of anybody on the team, but this is the best 1-2 guard combination in the NBA, and they play off each other in ways that they neutralize whatever So you got the 85 Bears for us in the first half? Cool.
Yeah.
Luka's going to make mistakes, but this kid's going to score 23. Oh, you got the 2000 Ravens defense in the second half. All right, well, the kid who had 23 is going to have to take a little bit of a back seat, but big boy Luka, he's the one that's going to come together here. It's Nickeil Alexander-Walker hitting shots is so important because you got to score to beat Dallas because they like the Nuggets or the Suns, they would go long patches missing shot. It's like Luka and Kyrie, they are slump stoppers. You can get outscored 8-0, 12-0, 13-0, but then one of those guys goes single-handedly on a 6 or 8-0 run because they're so good. That's why the ancillary pieces like McDaniels and whatever you get from Slow-Mo. But Alexander Walker can hit threes, man, and we need those tonight.
This team has a bench that's effectively 2 players deep. Timberwolves do. Nas, one of them. Nikhil's got to hit more of his shots than he has so far. This has been, and he didn't have a slump like this all season that I remember. I mean, and I watched, 70 Timberwolves games. I don't remember him going through an extended period of futility like he has here. And you talk about the fact that the Dallas doesn't give up these big runs. When you look at what they do in the paint, where you're going to shoot 60, 70%, the fact that they just owned the paint through most of that game with easy shots, layups, dunks. I mean, you don't get the protracted slumps when you're taking high percentage shots at the rim. Dallas outscored Minnesota in the paint. I'm sure you probably talked about this yesterday.
Well, 62 to something.
38.
Oh, that's what it was.
62-38 and 44 in the first half. 44 paint points in the first half allowed. That's how you don't get into slumps, and that can't continue as well.
Well, it's interesting you bring up in the paint. I saw this from a Tom Haberstroh, who does analytics, I think, for the Blazers and maybe NBA at large. But he put this out on the tweet machine earlier today. Points in the paint per 48 minutes. So effectively, points in the paint per game.
What would be good? Can you level set for me? I would think a good bad number would be like
30.
I don't know what
60.
Let's say it's in the 30s or 40s.
Yeah,
I would say feels like per game.
Right.
When Rudy Gobert was on the court in Game 1, the points in the paint for Dallas per 48 per game, 43.4.
Okay, so it's a little under 1 point per minute.
So and I would say as bad as we look defensively, playing the drop and all of that, and the fact that, and Kyle Anderson hit on it too, about we left Kyrie and Luka, we left defenders kind of on an island with them, didn't work. So they got to change that. They know that.
Yeah.
43.4 with Rudy on the court. In the 11-ish minutes that he was off the court.
Yes.
129.3.
What?
Yeah.
129.3 in the
exponential
11 minutes that Rudy Gobert was not on the court. So whether it's Draymond Green on national TV, it's me and PA joking yesterday about we got some stone hands issues on offensive rebounding. Can he hold the ball higher up in his body and grasp that thing a little tighter at times? We can micromanage the 4-time Defensive Player of the Year's moments in these games. It went from 43.4 points in the paint over 37 minutes.
Yeah.
To 129.3. They absolutely freaking feasted in the paint as soon as they saw a big man hit the bench.
Wow.
Rudy, Rudy, Rudy. We should be chanting and singing Rudy's praises, not just from the work that he did the previous 2 series, what he meant, albeit in a, at times, discombobulated defense in total.
Yes.
Rudy was on point in Game 1.
But isn't the theory that we've got 3 bigs and we should be able to do better rim protection because of the depth that we've got between Rudy and Cat and Nas?
Right.
And the fact that Rudy leaves, we shouldn't go what was it? Minus 125 in points in the paint
But
per minute
in the
when Rudy leaves.
In the Phoenix series, we went Nurkic gets banged up, Eubanks. Okay, now
Nurkic.
Nurkic, thank you. And then into Drew Eubanks.
Yeah.
Okay, and Eubanks is tough, but I mean, I prefer to have Derek Lively on my team. I think everybody else would too. Then you have Jokic, and behind that, for like a big man, I mean, Aaron Gordon, he's an athletic big. Porter's a 3-point shooting big.
Did DeAndre Jordan ever even take the court in the series?
No,
I don't remember seeing him in the mix.
It's over, Johnny. This series, they have two true centers, Gafford and Lively, and P.J. Washington is tough as bleep, and he's very tough by the basket. We talked a lot about that up to the series, where yes, like one of the first things Nordo and I started talking about after the Wolves beat Denver was Monday was, all right, man, I mean, get ready for this bloodbath. This is going to be a cage match between like Gorilla Monsoon, George the Animal Steel, Bobby Heenan, and so on, Paul Orndorff, and just keep going.
Wow.
With Gafford and Lively and P.J. Washington and Gobert and Naz Reid, Kyle Anderson, 6'10", he'll mix it up, Jaden McDaniels, Karl Anthony Towns. I mean, this is a bloodbath against these Mavericks trying to win that paint battle.
Yeah, to Charch's point, though, I would need somebody much smarter about it than I am to go in and just really analyze those moments when Rudy wasn't on the court, what that thing looked like.
Yeah.
But statistically, not entirely box score chasing, but analytically, it's saying that when Rudy's not on the court, something is happening, and that does fall. Where was, Kyle Anderson, where was he at in the mix on this? The minutes that Naz was getting, like, what did that look like when he wasn't on the court? And it wasn't good, whatever that incarnation of the lineup was. So they saw that. Finch absolutely hammered on him, as you heard at the beginning of the segment, and it's got to be different tonight. And I anticipate, and I feel confident it will be, to be honest with you. I feel very confident that what we saw, fatigue, blame it on whatever, blame it on the rain, that's not going to be the problem tonight.
Next segment, as we begin into the middle portion of 9 to noon, Vikes Bites are going to unfurl, and it's going to have a Minnesota Vikings offensive bent to it for the next segment. Then we get back into Timberwolves and NBA conversation. Kevin Lynch from Bally Sports North, he analyzes basketball for profit. He'll be in studio 1 hour from